Good evening and welcome to Crosstalk. And we are delighted to bring to you one of our Christian leaders, a person that we greatly honor, as we talk about the issues that affect some of our domestic budget items. And that budget item is called electricity, electrical power. And today we are glad and very delighted to host Joy Mdivo, Mrs. Joy Mdivo, a practicing lawyer, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and a leader in the church. Welcome, Joy.
Asante sana.
And thank you for making time for us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let me go straight away. I mean, we're glad that the government appointed to important offices people who are of Christian faith. And what does that mean for you in terms of, as Joy, being a Christian, coming to this state appointment? What do you bring?
First and foremost, thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah.
Then it wasn't exactly a state appointment. It is and it isn't. So let me just help clarify that. Because KPLC is a listed company, their shareholders elect you into office. But because the government is a big shareholder of Kenya Power and Lighting, if you're in favor with them, then you find your basket gets a few more votes than the others. So
you are validly elected?
Yes, it's technically elected to be a director, but yes, on the flip side, if we scrutinize the votes, when you have one vote, ni kama ile kura moja ya Mungu. It's usually heavier than all the others. So that's the situation. And as a believer, I think it's a mission field. It's an opportunity to serve because the notion that we only serve in church, I think slowly we have come to learn that this is not the case, that we are called to be full-time for Christ wherever he has planted us. So whenever in my situation, my consecration, when I find myself in a particular space, when you have favor and acceptance and there's an open door that we're able to get into, I know that that is a mission field and that my duty therefore is to be the best that I can be in that space. So that's me now.
What are we to expect from you, in terms of electricity, power, service, and all that?
Now, I'm chairman of a board of a listed company, so I am overseeing the management. My board oversees the management of the Kenya Power and Lighting Company. So we help them with strategy, so that the strategies that they craft are the ones that will move the company forward. We also help them to make decisions, especially about big ticket items like Kenyans grapple with, so that the decisions are responsibly made. Then, of course, financial oversight to make sure that there's fiscal responsibility, that the company's balance sheet is as healthy as it can be. So that is primarily the nuts and bolts of it. For me also as a mission field, one of the things that I told God is my time there, help us to find solutions that will bring relief, will bring an outlet so that Kenyans also can feel that there's some balance to it. Because I keep telling people, you know what, the problem is not even just the cost of power, is that in this place people feel maybe I'm not getting my money's worth. Because when you go into a space and people tell you, for example, for your fiber pay this much, because your dedicated 100 Mbps is coming every month, you pay because you want that. But if you start suspecting that they're sharing, it's not dedicated, or that it is not 100, maybe they're giving you, then that becomes a problem. And I think many people with power, that's the thing. They keep feeling like maybe we're paying for more than what we're getting, maybe it's not fair. And that's what creates the discontent, not even the cost per se, because to be honest, Kenya spend a lot more on many other things. So.
I recently had almost what one would call a national disaster when we had that big power blackout.
Yes.
I know you explained yourself, but would you like to refresh us on Crosstalk what that was about? Okay,
so let me try and explain this in layman terms, not using the mega kilowatt hours and whatnot. It confuses even me. So this is picture you've got some men who are doing work on a construction site, and they're carrying this heavy beam because there's no crane. So they're carrying this beam across their shoulders. So we've got 10 men carrying it. Yeah. If the 10 men are carrying it, and then one man in the middle needs to go use the bathroom, the load is left with the other 9, and they'll feel the extra weight, but they probably will be able to handle it. However, if as they're carrying the beam, 4 men need to leave at once, and they leave haphazardly, and they all just leave, the 6 who are left will probably still struggle to hold it up. But if all men go and only 3 are left,
That's finished.
What you have is the ones who are left
will crash.
Will crumble with the
Under the
load.
weight.
That's how the power network works. Is that everybody who's generating power is feeding into the national grid at the same time. As they're feeding the national grid at the same time, all of us who are consuming power are drawing from the national grid at the same time. So it's a delicate balance between what is provided and what is being drawn. And all this is balanced very carefully. The people who sit in something called the National Control Center, they just make sure that this balance is always maintained. But if power becomes unavailable suddenly, then the ones who are remaining are putting in as much as they can, but the ones who are drawing more than is available. Now, because of the sensitivity of the instruments that are used, when there's a major fluctuation, their self-protection mechanism is to shut off. So what happened on that
Protect what's left.
To protect what's left. Because if they get damaged, replacing them is now stories for years. So all of them have this inbuilt mechanism. So on the fateful day, there was one of our power producing stations that detected a difference in the network. And for them, they decided to protect their investment, that the machines actually automatically does it. There's no man who's sitting there to switch it off. The machines do it themselves. But what it did, it took away a very huge chunk of the supply into the system at a go. And what was left was not enough to supply the needs of Kenyans. So now you find the draw is more than what is going in. So the safety mechanism is shut everything down. So tap, 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 everything goes off. Now, ordinarily, when that happens, within about an hour or two, we should be able to get restoration of power. Because again, to restart the power, it's almost like starting a car. You look for a power source, you look for a candle that is alight, and then you light your off candle. Usually we do that with Uganda. Coincidentally, on that day, Uganda also was down on their side. So they could not jumpstart us. So we tried to get other people to try and jumpstart us, and it took us a little bit of while to figure it out. So by the time we tried to come back on, it crashed a second time, tried again, it crashed a second time. So now we decided, okay, let's wait until we figure this out before we restart, because it was clear that there was something major that had gone wrong. So that's why it took almost 2 days to do it. Now, the investigations are still ongoing, but that is basically what happened.
Okay.
Can we assure you that will never happen again? Probably not. What we can assure Kenyans is that all the lessons that can be learned have been learned, so that it does not happen soon. So it's not a guarantee that it will never happen again, but the lessons that we have learned are being applied.
Precautions and measures.
And even how you balance the load, having more, because one of the ways of protecting it is having spare power somewhere that is being generated but it's not being used. So it's called spinning reserve, so that in case of this happening, now you inject that power into the grid. In Kenya, we don't have that leeway. People keep thinking, oh, we've got too much power in Kenya. Actually, we don't have enough. So when there's no power in the grid, we have no backup, basically. You
don't have enough. Okay, now educate us a bit about that. We know there is this station in Longonot.
Leangalani, the famous.
Yes, the famous one. There's other geothermal alternative energy, blah, blah, blah. We just need to be clear. You know, when you say there's not enough, what does that mean? We don't have enough dams, we don't have enough power generation, plants. What does that mean?
In fact, one of the biggest myths we have is that Kenya Power is a monopoly. It isn't. The power sector is completely fragmented. Once upon a time, in 1996, Kenya Power was a monopoly. We used to generate the power, we used to transmit it, and we used to sell it. We used to do everything. Then 1996, they decided, you know what? Somebody else needs to generate the power.
So that's why KenGen came in.
So now they brought KenGen and the famous independent power producers, the IPPs, you keep hearing with the expensive power.
Okay.
So that's why they came in. So they're like, you know what? You guys do the generation. When you generate, us guys will come and evacuate it and sell it to Kenyans. Along the line, they decided, you know what? Even that one, we're going to break it down further. So they brought in a geothermal, GDC, the geothermal development part. So there's somebody else doing the steam, somebody else is doing the rest of the generation, somebody else. Then they brought in Ketraco. So they kept breaking the monopoly through the year. Ketraco is the one now that does transmission, the Kenya Transmission, Electricity Transmission Company. So them now, they're the ones who own all those power lines you see along the road as you're going to Shago, as to where. Now them, they're the guys
these
who
ones
carry,
that are being vandalized.
Yeah, the ones who carry, no. The ones who carry from the dam to now the substations. Now these ones in the assets being vandalized now belong to KPLC, the distribution lines. The one that takes from the substation
so you people
now to your
now
house.
Just distributors.
Now we just distribute. So Kenya Power is really not a monopoly. It used to be, but all the functions have been broken up. So all we are left doing is selling power. Like even on the day of the national blackout, it had nothing to do with us because we are the shopkeepers waiting for the bread to be delivered.
But you're the face of it.
Yeah, but because we're
default.
the customer-facing side of the energy sector, everybody's like, Kenya Power has done this. But actually, it was the power producer and the transmitter. It was between them
that there was a problem.
That there was a problem. But with us, you know, because the customers are waiting for the supply, why aren't you supplying us with this bread? I'm like, I don't know what's happening at the bakery. Maybe the bakery says we produced, but it is the truck that was bringing.
So with all this diversification and IPPs and all that, it's still not enough?
It's still not enough. It's still not enough. Because Kenya, let's say, let me use over the top terms and then see if it works. Huh? So let's say we need 3,000 units as a country. 3,000 megawatt hours is what we need as a country during our peak times. That's between 7 o'clock and 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
We produce what, about 2,900? And because not everybody draws every day, we'll use about 2,800. So we have a spare of like about 100 megawatt units over there. But if in case of anything happens, like that time we lost about just almost 300 units that day. Now with a spare of 100, you have a deficit of 200, that becomes a catastrophe. So ordinarily, if it was something we had foreseen that this was going to occur at a certain time, the guys at the control center would have tried and asked the other guys to sort of ramp up the production to a little bit more. But even if everybody was producing everything at the whole time, we are not meeting our threshold and having the spinning reserve on top that is needed, because they needed to have about 30% capacity that is spare. It's not in the grid, but is available. If it's needed, it's just a matter of plugging in. We don't have enough. Then our energy mix, like you said, hydro has not been doing well, which is one of the places where we have done a lot of investment. But because of the recent droughts and the falling water levels, because the water levels have fallen before, then the drought just made it worse. Like Masinga, I don't think is in production right now, or if it's producing is way less than 50% capacity. So most of our dams are not doing well. That used to be a good source of power, where you're getting good quality power in plenty and all day long. But now you see it's not available. Geothermal is available, yes, but geothermal is the sort of power where, how do I put it? It is very specialized in absorbing it. So if you want to put in extra geothermal investment, it's a big deal. That's why there's an entire...
infrastructure becomes a conversation.
And it's expensive. So even if you know that there is steam that's coming out of there, you can't go tomorrow and start generating power from there. It's very technical. Unlike a dam where it's just putting the turbines and you start generating. Then we've got these others. You talk about solar and wind and these others. We call them the renewables. Now those ones, in layman terms, it's very dirty power. Why it is dirty power is not because of emissions. It's because it fluctuates. It's not stable. So like today is a cloudy day, it will be kidogo. Tomorrow it is sunny, there'll be plenty to be generated. The winds
and there's no way to stabilize it.
The only way is if you invest in massive storage, which is also very expensive. Think your UPS batteries in the house. Now for an entire station. Now you need like the space of this entire studio with lithium batteries to just store to stabilize. So it becomes expensive. So they generate and feed in the grid. Now because it's quote unquote dirty power, it fluctuates. Also, you can't depend on it, because if you look at the graph, sometimes it's doing really well. The wind was very good. Then all of a sudden, the wind is not working, and there's nothing coming from there. So you find that mix also makes things very unstable. And so some days we have very good power. Some days we don't do very well.
What's the future in terms of generation, distribution, of power?
One of the things that we are doing, and I'm very excited about, is that the Parliament is still considering this maneno of moratorium, but it looks like all indications that they'll lift the moratorium on IPPs. Now, granted, we had some very bad IPPs before, where people got deals that were very good for them, but very bad for the country. But like I said, we've learned from that. Now, those old IPPs, there's a process of renegotiation that is going on. And that's being done between the Ministry, the Treasury, the Ministry of Energy. It's a multi-sectoral approach to try and rework some of those old deals and tell them, look, you guys have had it good for several years. It's about time now you meet us halfway. But now the new ones that are coming in are being negotiated at a much more realistic scale. You have to appreciate, because that's a private individual coming to invest his personal money. He has to make a return on investment. So it can't come for free. It can't come for cheap. It comes at a premium, because, and most of those ones will serve off-grid stations, people who are not on the normal grid. But moving forward, technology has come a long way. Solar now is a lot cheaper. But now to try and cure that dirty power business, most of the new IPPs that we're engaging, we are requiring them, yes, do renewable, but have storage as a component of your investment. So that we're not getting directly from where you're producing from. You stabilize it and then you give it to us. It does two things. One, gives us a steady current. So it's not fluctuating up and down and spoiling people's property in the house, power surge and maneno. But the other thing it does is that they can generate during the day when there's sun, and supply even at night when there's no sun. Because like now, when you get to a peak is where most of those renewables fall off. And that's when we need it the most. During the day when we don't need so much is when they're producing and they're all feeding into the system. But the future also is where we're looking forward to having normal consumers becoming producers of small power at your...
In your own house.
In your own house, and feeding into the grid. So that what you do is, if you generate and you have got a little bit excess, you can feed back into the grid, and then we offset that against your bill. What that does, it also helps the small households to have a little component of storage. So in case there's a blackout, you also not. So look out for that, because it's being dubbed prosumers, where the producers also are consumers. So that also, because a lot of the noise is from us guys who stay in the dark. Factories, others, those ones have backup. Usually they're upset that they're using more diesel, but they can survive. But the domestic consumers, we have 9.2 million customers.
Wow.
We'll
take a break. And we're coming back to talk about this domestic, now you are going to call them prosumers.
Yes.
We're going to talk about our households. Viewers, we are talking electricity. We're talking about power. We're having a conversation with a dynamic Christian leader, Joy Ndivo. We want to talk about power. We want to talk about our bills. We want to see how do we make this space work better for us. We're taking a break. We shall be back soon. Don't go away.
The cost of electricity has affected my household budget, because you look at previously in like in the months of let's say go back to last year, the way the tokens were being distributed, but the amount I gave hasn't been the same.
When the electricity bill is high, it makes you to cut off the sum of your priority. You give it the first priority. Then there are things you are supposed to do, then you omit them. Not that because you want, but you are forced to do.
Electricity has affected my budget due to the high cost of living and the more charges that they charge on tokens. Because some few months I was using like 500 to 600 per month, but right now I'm forced to use more than 1,500 per month, and that is an issue that is affecting my budget at home.
So initially I used to use around 300 to 500, but like right now you find I'm using almost 2 or 3 times much than what I used before.
The cost of power has really affected my business, because first I'm an internet provider, and my machines do work with power. So you see, most of the time we have a power blackout in certain buildings. They do affect other buildings, and currently we are really facing a high cost of internet in the country, and recently we have increased also in the prices of power. So meaning that our income every month, the power has really affected us.
The government has not done much in cushioning Kenyans against high cost of power, and I believe that has even increased in terms of the cost of living. As a result of that, like for me, I can say right now I'm not even using my fridge like I used to do, because once you get your token, it won't last you much. The token, say for 300 shillings, it won't take you for even 2 days or 3 days.
The government has not done enough to cushion Kenyans against the high cost of power, and Kenyans are really suffering, and especially not just in the households where they use it for lighting, the simple things, but also for the small scale and medium. Like for example, recently, it's even very hard in the villages. I was there last week for them to go and take their maize to the grinding machine, because it uses power. These people have increased, the prices. So, it's very hard. It's very, very hard. And that is just one of the components of the high costs of living.
Welcome back to Crosstalk. We are talking all things electricity, all things Kenya Power, power generation, Ketraco, trying to just break this thing down to know what it is that happens when you get that bill. So, Joy, I'm going to ask you, who determines tariffs? How are they? How do we end up with that bill that we have to pay, which many times we pay very reluctantly and contentiously?
Yeah.
So how does that happen?
The power sector, the energy sector, is regulated by the energy regulator, EPRA. So Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. Now EPRA is the one that determines, like I told you, we used to be a monopoly. There's once upon a time that was within the ambit of whoever was the
Kenya
chair,
Power.
and then to decide how much they're charging. The government will tell you, charge this, charge that, but it was within their control. But EPRA was introduced as a regulatory authority. So not just for electricity, but for petroleum products as well. And that's why they also tell us how much we pay for our petrol.
For the pump.
So EPRA is the one that gives us a tariff that tells you this is how much you charge our Kenyans. So they tell you for Kenyans who consume a little power, those ones you'll charge them, it's called lifeline. Those ones you'll charge them this much. Those are guys who basically pay less for the power than it costs to get it to them. But because we recognize that power is also, it spurs growth and helps our community to grow. There are people who, if you wait for them to be able to afford the power, they will never be connected. So the government does that and says, you know what, the guys who can afford to pay a little bit more, will pay a little bit more, but these ones give them a lifeline. Then from the lifeline, then you come to regular domestic customers. And those ones who consume less than 100 units, they have their own tariff. You consume more than 100 units a month, you have your own tariff. And then the guys who are industrial. There also, there's for SMEs and for the large manufacturers. Then you also have got a different tariff for e-mobility. So if you're charging cars, buses and other things, you get a special tariff because the government is trying to encourage the movement to cleaner energy. Then now we have got something we are called a bulk tariff. So in this area, like we are, for example, I've seen many high-rise buildings that are coming up that could easily have 60 to 100 apartments in one block. Now, that one, instead of us coming and placing a meter in each and every house, we meter at the gate. So we give you a tariff where we meter at the gate. Then the developer meters each house. And then in the service charge or whatever it is, he gets his money back. So that we don't have to deal with your 100 customers. You deal with them. They're a captive audience. You can deal with your 100 guys. So it's evolving in how we are charging for power. But that's how power is determined. Power charges are determined. But of course, there's the issue that many Kenyans have raised, and it is a valid concern, that you buy tokens, you're expecting to get power worth 2,000 shillings, but you see you're getting power worth 1,200, and the rest of it is going to other charges, which are obviously taxes and levies. Now, like I told you, we are the customer-facing part of the business. So what happens is all the back people collect their money through us.
You are the collector for everybody else.
For everybody else. So for Ketraco to wheel the power from the power stations to the substations, they will load their charge there. Warma, the Water Management Authority, for all the water that we're using in Masinga, in Kindaruma, in Kiambere, and who they charge us a water charge. The government, through forex fluctuations, because they import the petrol that is used by the thermal generators, because the others will still use diesel to generate power, they put in the... Then there's a forex adjustment for ourselves, because some of the capital investments were done in forex denominated loans to build a dam or to build a whatnot. So that one, forex adjustment is also added there. KenGen also added theirs. EPRA, the regulator, also add his. So you find we are collecting for all these other guys. So at the end of the day, it looks like we are charging you so much for your power, but your power is actually what we tell you, this is what you've gotten for your tokens. The rest of it is all the guys in the value chain to get you the product to your doorstep are also collecting. Now, the law is such that we have to be transparent about that. That's why you're told that these other charges exist. Now, at the beginning of this year, we did something. We stopped sending the long SMS with all the charges, and we truncated it. And people have asked me, why are you hiding that information? We want to know. And I'm like, no, the information is still available. Because if you want to know the breakdown, if you go to the app and put in your, you'll be given the breakdown. But again, it was a fiscal decision. It was a money decision. Each time somebody sent for a token, they used to get back an SMS giving them the token number. That SMS is paid for by the company, not the customer. And most of the time you'd get 2 messages or 3 messages. Now you Rev, you've got a smartphone, yours will take 2 messages. And you're the kind of guy who's fairly reasonable. So you'd maybe buy once, and maybe 26 when it's squished again, then you buy another one. But usually in a month I'm paying what for 4 texts coming to you. But there are Kenyans who literally, and I'm saying this not in any flippant way, but there are guys who literally earn their money on a daily basis, so buy power on a daily basis. And it's when he's entered the house, he'll buy power for 25 bob. That one token, enough for him to just shower, have some light as he's having dinner. By the time he's going to bed, your token imeisha, analala, anamka asubuhi anatoka naenda. And he does this every single day. Unfortunately, Kabambe phones, the ones that are not smart, used to have 3 SMSs to deliver the same token. That guy, his interest is just the numbers, the 12 digits, yuko na moto na naendelea. Hii composition ingine,
it's a waste of time for him.
And a waste of money for me.
Correct.
So the decision to condense it to 1 SMS was so that you deliver what people want, get your token that you can input, and the one who wants to engage in an academic exercise is probably the guy who's buying a token for 10,000 bob. He wants to know where 4,000 has gone. Him, he's got a smartphone. He probably can get into the app, the 977 hash, and to look inside and find out, okay, so what were the other charges? EPRA, when they're giving us the tariff, they also give the breakdown of this will go here, this will go there. So it's not like it's hidden information. It's just that in doing that one decision, we save almost 100 million shillings in a month in SMS charges.
And reinvest it elsewhere.
And it can go somewhere else. So it was a purely financial decision.
Okay, the saying is, and I'm not sure how true it is, the saying is that the cost of power in Kenya is higher comparatively in the region and even in the continent. Myth or truth? It's a bit of both. There's some places where we are definitely cheaper than, and some places where we are definitely more expensive than. What determines that? Now, like I told you first, our energy mix. We have quite a few independent power producers, many of whom at the time when they were doing those contracts, the contracts are dollar denominated. The guys who are there understand why that happened. So you find I could have paid, it's the same $10, but because of the change in Forex, today I paid 1,000 bob, but by next month I'm paying the guy 1,400 for the same $10. This is not realistic, it's just, for the sake of illustration. So you find that there are guys who, the payments, even without adjusting the payments upwards, we've been paying them more, simply because of the denomination that we had agreed in our contracts to begin with. It was USD, it was USD. It was USD, it was USD. Then there are guys also, in our situation, we've got situations where with people who are in off-grid stations, but they still need power. So Ketraco hasn't gotten there yet. So those are the guys who actually cost us a lot more because those have diesel generators, generating power to supply an entire town. So you're looking at the towns mainly northeastern and in other areas where there's no grid yet, but those guys deserve power and they want power. So you go and do what you call a mini grid. Those guys will charge you for the fuel, for the diesel, for the investment. It adds up. And then the fortune or misfortune of it is because we're a national producer,
When you're calculating everything, you calculate it on one balance sheet. So I can't say that bit makes me a loss. I'm not going to supply those guys anymore. They have to remain a part of the whole. So we are all carrying each other. So those of us who are in a place where we're a bit more comfy and a little bit more cushy, sometimes we do pay a little bit more for the sake of others who need a little bit extra help to get
some
the
kind of
commodity to
equalization.
them. Yes.
Okay, tell us about power blackouts, especially in towns where there is no load shedding. What usually is going on there? Like if my house just goes black at night, I'm about to watch news.
There's a cake in the oven.
You're thinking, oh Lord, now I have to go to my phone. At least I have an option. I can go to my laptop and go to my phone. But tell us about blackouts.
You'll find our network is quite old. There are some of the places where the installations were done in the 60s, in the 70s. So you keep, when a pole is falling, you reinforce it, you do what, but then the lines are basically the same. So you find we have a lot of system losses as well because of our system could be more robust, but it's not yet there. But we are doing it slowly. What our engineers have kept doing is looking at the sections that are worst hit and trying to work on those first. So that eventually, in the next maybe 5 years, the entire system should have been reinforced so that our distribution system is robust. So you'll find that is sometimes a problem. Maybe when you first moved into your neighborhood, it was single-family homes. Like in Buruburu, it was single-family homes, and all of you have the one line that has dropped in. But through the years, you've bombarded that old house, you put up a flat. They've all been connected. So you find that demand has changed. The system has largely remained the same. So there are places where they had a single-phase transformer. Now they need a three-phase transformer because there's overload all the time. So when there's overload, it trips. So there are all these little factors that play into making the network unstable. In Kenya, we try, because I think we are at, last I checked, we're about at 95%, we are almost always switched on. So the 5% is for those intermittent blackouts, but we are mostly switched on. There are other countries where the nature of their load shedding is what we had in the 90s. It's you have power today, you don't have power tomorrow. You have power today,
and you have to plan for it.
Or you've got 5 hours of power and you don't have power for the rest of the day. So thank God we are not at that point. But even if we are not at that point, there's still room for improvement, because we have, like I had the privilege of going to Israel earlier this year. And those are guys who will tell you it's been 30 years, they've never seen a blackout. They're on supply the entire time. They've managed to get their network to a level where even if they hear there's a blackout, there's almost a commission of inquiry, because they have become so good at maintaining their supply at 100%. So we'll get there, because if I look around the region, some of the places that have got cheaper power than us also have got more going for them. So for example, a place like Ethiopia, in terms of falls and dams and places generate hydro power, because the hydropower is the cheapest and most abundant and most reliable.
And cleanest.
So those guys have an advantage, because they've got many rivers with many falls that are naturally giving themselves. Us guys have to construct dams to create the fall, to generate the power. So some of those things make things easier for them. But some of our neighbors are faring not so well. So it's a matter of kusaidiana. But therein lies an opportunity for Kenyans. If we're able to create artificial dams and are able to generate powers, even for private people, these days the world is getting interconnected. You can become a supplier to a neighboring country. Maybe in Isabania, there you generate and sell to Tanzania.
Tell me now, one more thing that I would like to know is this question mainly from manufacturers who complain about the cost of power, the stability, the reliability. Speak into that a bit.
In fact, for our manufacturers, I think the place where we let them down the most is what I talked about earlier, the dirty power. The fluctuations in the power systems for many manufacturers also have got sensitive equipment that even a little fluctuation in the, like I was talking to a manufacturer in the Suleria, he was saying for his business, a little fluctuation in the power, his system shut off, because they can't be damaged. But once they shut off, it takes him 3 hours to get back into full production. So in order to cure that, he would rather, once he starts running his machines, he'd rather switch it to generator, where he knows the power will remain a certain quality. And then he uses now my power for lighting and other things. So I can look at this big industry, I'm wondering, why isn't this customer giving me the sort of money I'm expecting from him. But it's because half of it is using his own resources to generate. So for many of the manufacturers, the biggest problem is not even how much, because they're using it to make money. So it's a cost of production. For them, it's the quality. So that it makes it, what makes it more expensive is that if I'm running diesel as well as Kenya Power, I'm giving Kenya Power $1 million and I'm spending $2 million in diesel to run a generator, the cost is ridiculous. So it drives the cost of the product up. But like I said, like the concept I was talking about earlier of the prosumer, if we get our domestic consumers to become part of our production machinery, so that now the power that was going to domestic homes during the day, for example, can be redirected to the factories, then we've got more steady power that's good quality, strong current and steady current. That reduces their costs. If the domestic consumer also has a battery component, so they don't have a blackout per se, then if something happens, there's the patience to deal with it. Because you know, if your lights don't go off, you can give people 2 hours. Or they're fixing that like the day for the national blackout. There's the patience to deal and matters more conclusively. Right now, you can't even bear switch off for 1 hour, the calls and the messages. So even if it's fixing, guys, sometimes just, you know, you shikanisha, you run away and hope for the best.
Yes.
So that will become more systematic.
All right, so there's a plan to cure that so that manufacturers can get good power, affordable, that could then make their products, you know, profits higher, products cheaper and things like those.
And just to add, I know also KenGen have been, they're engaged in a very aggressive plan to raise the water levels in their dams. So there's a plan to raise the walls in Masinga Dam and the other dams so they hold more water, so they generate more power, and they're also changing to more efficient turbines. Because some of those turbines are what we put in the 1990s and the early 2000s. So it's older technology that takes a lot more water to generate the same amount. But now there's some turbines that move with a lot less water and generate a lot more power. So even the quality of power that we'll be getting from our producers is changing, is improving. Our renewables, once they start generating with the storage, it is changing and also improving. So eventually, it will even out. It will
even out and become stable and more reliable.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, for everyone. And hopefully also the government will work with us. That when we get to that level of efficiency, EPRA will be like, you know what, boys and girls, very well done, all of you in the industry. Here you go. We can have a more friendly tariff. Because contrary to popular belief, we can't decide what we charge people. So again, the government also has to step in and help us out there.
Well done. This is Joy Mdivo, wife and mother of 3. How old are you?
2 adults and 1 child.
Well, please say a big hello to them and thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for educating us. We're going to try and wrap our minds around all that and try to be a little more careful in the way we spend our power and be a little more appreciative of what happens in the back in the value chain. Viewers, we've been watching Crosstalk and we have talked matters electricity, power generation, value chain, and I hope that creates a better understanding for you as a consumer to be able to use power more efficiently, and for those of you who are doing illegal connections to stop it completely.
We didn't even discuss that.
And we pray that God will bless this country as we continue. I encourage that we are at 95% connectivity all the time. We thank God for that. May God bless you. May God keep you. This has been Crosstalk. My name is Reverend Tom Otieno. You have a blessed week.